Where do we come from? How did life begin? These aren't just scientific facts. They touch on the very nature of truth and how different worldviews can clash in ways that sometimes feel like competing languages.
It's a conversation that has shaped cultures, fueled scientific inquiry, and continues to spark passionate discussions worldwide.
Yeah, the implications, they run deep, don't they?
Absolutely. They reverberate through science, philosophy, and our understanding of society itself.
Absolutely. And our guide for this deep dive is Robert T. Pennock's monumental work, Tower of Babel, The Evidence Against the New Creationism.
It's a truly monumental work, yeah.
And Pennock's title, Tower of the Babel, it perfectly captures that sense of, competing languages of truth, trying to build their own understanding of origins, often talking past each other. This book isn't just a survey. It's an incredible resource that meticulously explores the modern creationist movement, dissects its arguments against evolution, and presents the robust scientific and philosophical responses.
So our mission today is to unpack these incredibly complex arguments, examine the evidence Pennock presents, and understand the various perspectives at play.
Crucially, we're doing this without taking sides.
Right. Our goal is to illuminate the scientific findings, historical context, and the philosophical underpinnings that shape this ongoing discussion, helping you cut through the noise and become truly well-informed.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's fascinating how personal experience can shape one's initial views on such a grand topic, even for academics.
Yeah.
Pennock himself admits that his initial vague acquaintance with evolutionary theory left him finding the evolution of something as seemingly complex as the long-necked giraffe rather unbelievable.
That's a critical insight right there. He recalls that early perspective with a real sense of empathy for those who are drawn to creationism.
Yeah.
It highlights a profound challenge. Many people, even those who go on to become highly educated, often don't receive an adequate education in the foundational principles of evolution, or they are simply unaware of the vast body of evidence that supports it.
Right, this lack of foundational knowledge, it can make creationist arguments seem really compelling, can't it?
Incredibly compelling, especially those arguments that appeal to intuitive incredulity, that feeling of, it just doesn't seem possible. It's a gap in understanding that can lead to deeply entrenched beliefs.
That really highlights a common hurdle for many people, doesn't it? If your only exposure to evolution is a high school textbook chapter that skims the surface, or if it's presented without its full evidential backing.
It can feel counterintuitive, yeah. Almost like a fantastical tale.
Pennock's own journey further illustrates this point. He initially attended the first international conference on creationism out of pure academic curiosity.
And he noted the large number of participants and their sometimes heated exchanges.
Right.
Initially, he viewed this primarily as a pedagogical case study. An example of how science education needed to be improved.
But then something shifted.
It shifted dramatically when he saw a renewed creationist activism in the schools. He specifically mentions a distressing encounter with one of his best undergraduate students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was upset that her hometown school board in Plano, Texas, was actively considering adopting a creationist textbook for science classes.
So it became real, not just academic.
Exactly. It was no longer an abstract problem. It was impacting the real education of students.
That's when it stopped being just an academic curiosity and became something he felt compelled to seriously engage with, almost a moral imperative.
Mm-hmm.
It shows how the abstract academic debate can become intensely personal and urgent when it directly impacts public education and the scientific literacy of an entire generation.
Precisely.
This shift in Pennock's own perspective really underscores the gravity of the discussion we're having today.
Precisely. This transition from theoretical interest to serious, dedicated engagement due to very real-world implications, particularly in the realm of public education, became a major impetus for his exhaustive work on Tower of Babel.
It really highlights the ongoing nature of this debate beyond just academic circles. It's a battle for public understanding and the future of science education.
It really is.
And what's particularly striking about this movement is how it adapted, how it evolved, if you will.
Nice one.
Reach wider audiences and gain significant influence. This new creationism that Pennock describes has gained substantial power and resources over the years.
Yeah, we're talking about talks by prominent figures like Philip Johnson, Alvin Plantinga, and Walter Bradley, regularly drawing massive audiences.
How massive?
Anywhere from 400 to 800 people at a single event.
Wow. That indicates a profound strategic shift. This isn't just a fringe movement anymore.
No, it's becoming highly organized, well-funded, and increasingly sophisticated in its outreach. A prime example of this increased financial support and strategic organization is the Center for Renewal of Science and Culture.
That's part of the Discovery Institute, right? Established in '96.
Exactly, based in Seattle. And this center is specifically dedicated to funding intelligent design creationists, providing them with institutional backing and resources that earlier iterations of the movement often lacked.
And they're not shying away from prominent public forums either. Pennock points to that notable debate between Johnson and Michael Ruse at SMU back in '92.
Right, the title itself was provocative. Darwinism, scientific inference or philosophical preference.
And Ruse, he was a big deal, wasn't he? A key witness in that Arkansas trial.
He was. Ruse, as a renowned philosopher of biology, had been a key expert witness in the important 1982 Arkansas trial that overturned legislation mandating balanced treatment of creationism and evolution in public schools.
So this wasn't just an academic discussion. It was a high-stakes intellectual battle designed for public consumption and influence.
Absolutely. And beyond public debates and financial backing, this new creationism has also masterfully exploited new media.
The internet, yeah.
Definitely. All the major creationist organizations, and even smaller ones, now boast slick, professional websites.
Like the intelligent design folks.
Yeah, they largely operate under the umbrella of the Access Research Network, which used to be called Students for Origins Research.
And their main journal, Origins in Design, that's available online too.
Both in print and, crucially, online, which means they reach a far wider and more diverse audience than ever before.
So their message is constantly out there, being disseminated and reinforced.
Which directly impacts public perception and understanding of scientific consensus. It's a very effective strategy.
It's not just online either. Pennock also points out that television programs, like the John Ankerberg Show,
Oh yeah, they've successfully adapted that syndicated talk show format.
bringing what they consider the good news and creationist viewpoints directly into people's living rooms with high production values.
This broad media saturation really illustrates how deeply embedded and well-supported this movement has become, transforming it from a niche belief into a significant cultural and political force.
It truly does. And building on this, a fascinating aspect of this movement is its internal diversity.
That's right. Pennock actually likens creationism itself to a cluster of ideas that reproduces itself by spreading from mind to mind and struggling with competing ideas.
Like mental viruses, almost.
For a home among a person's beliefs. He even goes so far as to describe differences emerging within creationism as a conceptual speciation event.
A conceptual speciation, I love that. It's like applying Darwinian evolution to ideas themselves, a kind of cultural natural selection.
Exactly. So these conceptual mutations allow different viewpoints to survive and reproduce in these dynamic mental environments.
So what kind of species are we seeing emerge here, specifically within the creationist movement?
Well, a key distinction Pennock highlights is between fundamentalists and evangelicals.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Fundamentalists are typically more inclined to exclusively use the King James Version of the Bible, adhere to the imminence of Christ's second coming, and prepare for the rapture of true believers.
Right.
Evangelicals, on the other hand, are generally more comfortable acknowledging the difficulties of biblical hermeneutics.
Hermeneutics, that's the interpretation of texts, right?
Exactly, the art and science of interpreting religious texts. This greater flexibility in interpretation can lead to quite different views on scientific matters, even within a shared faith tradition.
So this is where you get the Young-Earth Creationists, or YECs, versus the Old-Earth Creationists, OECs.
That's the main split, yeah.
It sounds like different interpretive strategies lead to very different conclusions about the age of the Earth.
Precisely. Young-Earth Creationists, like those associated with Creation Science Evangelism, CSC, explicitly cite their website asking questions like, was there a worldwide flood during Noah's lifetime? Where did the water come from? Where did it go?
So they're sticking to a literal recent creation, less than 10,000 years old.
Correct. Believing the biblical genealogies provide a precise timeline.
And then you have people like Glenn Morton, a fascinating example mentioned in the source material. He was a geologist.
Right, a geologist who was a young Earth creationist but shifted to an old Earth creationist viewpoint because of the overwhelming evidence for an old Earth he encountered in his professional field.
His personal journey mirrors the intellectual struggle many face.
Morton's journey is quite telling. He adopted a days of proclamation interpretation for Genesis 1.
How does that work?
Where the days are actual days but separated by millions of years, on which God proclaimed the next phase of creative activity.
Ah, okay. So it allows for both a literal reading of the days in Genesis and an acceptance of an ancient Earth.
Exactly. It also highlights how some creationists, like Philip Johnson, deliberately avoid making specific commitments on these points of contention between creationist camps.
Like the age of the Earth or the flood.
Precisely. This is a defining characteristic of intelligent design creationists, or IDCs, who aim for a broader, less biblically specific approach.
So, IDCs strategically tried to present a more generic, less overtly biblical form of creationism. They don't usually mention the Great Flood or Noah's Ark in their writings.
Generally not, no.
It's a deliberate move to broaden their appeal, perhaps to a more secular audience, and to avoid some of the more easily refutable scientific claims of the Young-Earth Creationists.
It's a key part of their new creationism strategy, yes.
It seems like in their public activism, creationists generally try to disguise the theology and also to limit the physical claims to a smaller core set.
That's right. This was famously codified in the Arkansas Balanced Treatment Act, which boiled down their explicit commitments to 6 key theses.
Right, the Arkansas 6 Theses.
These theses provide a clear framework for understanding the specific scientific claims that creationism directly challenges, laying bare the points of contention.
Let's list them out, because they really do define the battleground and show us where the fundamental disagreements lie.
Okay.
First, the sudden creation of the universe, energy, and life from nothing.
This directly challenges the scientific understanding of cosmic evolution, the Big Bang, and abiogenesis, the natural process of life arising from non-living matter.
Second, they claim the insufficiency of mutation and natural selection in bringing about the development of all living kinds from a single organism.
Which goes against the core tenet of universal common descent, the scientific understanding that all life on Earth shares a common ancestor and has diversified over vast stretches of time through natural processes.
Third, they assert that changes only occur within fixed limits of originally created kinds of plants and animals.
So a rejection of macroevolution, or large-scale evolutionary change that leads to new species and higher taxonomic groups, basically limiting the scope of biological change.
Fourth, the separate ancestry of humans and apes.
Which directly contradicts the extensive fossil and genetic evidence for human evolution from a common primate ancestor. This is often one of the most contentious points, given its implications for human identity.
Yeah, that one always stirs things up. Fifth, the explanation of Earth's geology by catastrophism, including the occurrence of a worldwide flood.
This means rejecting uniformitarianism, the principle that the same natural laws and processes that operate now have always operated. It also implies rejecting the vast geological timescales indicated by rock formations.
And finally, sixth, a relatively recent inception of the Earth and living kinds, typically less than 10,000 years old.
Which of course stands in direct opposition to vast geological and astronomical evidence, placing the Earth's age at about 4.5 billion years and the universe at almost 14 billion years.
So these 6 points, they're not just defining creationism, they reveal a fundamental attempt to reframe science itself.
A strategic attempt, yes. Boiling down complex theological positions into seemingly scientific challenges that resonate with specific doubts about evolution.
And with that clear framework in mind, let's move into challenging some of these core claims with scientific evidence and its implications. Perhaps no point is more central to the Young-Earth Creationist view than the age of the Earth.
It's foundational for them, definitely.
It's the foundational block upon which many other creationist arguments rest.
That's right. Young-Earth creationists often propose what's known as the appearance of age thesis, famously put forward by Henry Philip Goss in his 1857 book, Omphalos.
The Omphalos argument, right? God made it look old.
Exactly. This idea suggests that the universe was created recently, as Genesis describes, but God made it look old. For instance, fossils might have been placed in deep rock layers already formed.
Or light from distant stars created en route.
Precisely. Light that would normally take millions or billions of years to reach us, created as if it had already been traveling for eons.
It's more than just a different view, though. It challenges the very bedrock of scientific investigation by introducing an untestable premise.
It really does.
It effectively says, don't trust your senses or your instruments, because a divine illusion is always possible.
That's where science hits a wall it cannot intellectually climb.
Exactly. When faced with overwhelming evidence like radioactive dating, YECs simply reject it outright.
How do they justify that?
They argue that parent elements and their decay products could just as well, in fact, much more likely have been created there to begin with.
So bypassing the whole scientific method.
Completely. By appealing to an unfalsifiable supernatural intervention, which makes any empirical test meaningless from their perspective?
It also reminds me of the debunked moon dust argument, which was popular among creationists for a time.
Oh yeah, that one hung around for a while.
They used data from a 1960s Scientific American article by Pedersen, suggesting a high rate of interplanetary dust falling onto the moon. And the argument was, if the moon and Earth were billions of years old, they'd be buried under hundreds of feet of dust.
Since they aren't, the Earth must be young. But why did it persist for so long if it was easily debunked? What does that tell us?
That's a good question. I think it tells us that, for some, an argument's usefulness in supporting a pre-existing belief sometimes outweighs its scientific validity. But that argument was thoroughly invalidated by later, more accurate data from the moon missions, which showed a much, much lower dust accumulation rate.
Right. The Apollo astronauts found hardly any dust.
Minimal dust, yeah. Not the massive layers predicted by the creationist calculation. This illustrates the scientific process in action. Initial data might be incomplete or misleading, but new, more accurate data refines and corrects our understanding.
Science is self-correcting.
Exactly. Arguments based on outdated or misapplied data simply don't stand the test of time.
And the scientific counter to these age of the Earth claims is incredibly robust, drawing from multiple independent lines of evidence.
Overwhelmingly robust, yes. The precision and strength of radiometric dating, for example.
Using isotopes like carbon-14 or uranium-238.
Right, relying on their predictable decay rates. And that's combined with independent measures like dating igneous rocks that bracket fossil layers.
So you can date the rocks above and below the fossil.
Precisely. And these methods are cross-calibrated against each other and against astronomical observations, providing a remarkably consistent picture of an ancient Earth.
Indeed. Paleontologists can effectively say that fossils do come with dated labels, because the rock layers they are found in can be reliably dated using multiple radiometric techniques.
It gives an absolute timeline, not just a relative one.
It allows for an absolute structure to the tree of life, consistently confirming an ancient Earth and universe.
For example, if we find a fossil in a layer of rock that is chemically and structurally consistent with volcanic ash from 100 million years ago, and we can date that ash precisely,
then we know the fossil is about that old.
Approximately, yes. It's not about rejecting data, it's about evaluating it through a consistent, evidence-based methodology that has been rigorously tested and validated.
Okay, let's turn to another very common creationist argument. The second law of thermodynamics.
Yes, the entropy argument.
The claim here is that evolution, which supposedly leads to increasing complexity, violates this law, which states that closed systems tend towards increased entropy or disorder.
Right. How can order arise from disorder, essentially?
How do scientists counter this persistent misconception?
Well, this argument stems from several significant misunderstandings of both evolution and thermodynamics.
Okay, break it down.
First, evolution is not always toward increasing complexity. While we see examples of increasing complexity, species can and do become less complex in certain environments.
Like parasites losing organs.
Exactly. Parasites losing complex organs they no longer need, or cave-dwelling organisms losing their eyesight. So the premise that evolution always means increasing complexity is flawed to begin with.
That's a good point. I think many people intuitively assume evolution means an upward march to better or more complex organism.
But it's really about adaptation to a specific environment, whatever form that takes.
Right.
But the more fundamental misunderstanding lies in the application of the second law itself. The second law of thermodynamics applies to closed systems.
Meaning systems isolated from external energy.
Correct. The Earth, however, is emphatically an open system.
It's constantly getting energy from the sun.
A massive influx of energy. Think of the analogy Pennock uses, a water wheel on a dammed stream. The water flows downhill, doing work. If it were a closed system, it'd eventually stop.
But it's not closed.
Exactly. Energy from the sun constantly evaporates water, lifts it thermodynamically uphill to a state of lower entropy, and lets it fall as rain to keep the stream flowing and the wheel turning. It generates order in the water cycle.
So the sun's energy input is the crucial missing piece in the creationist argument. The Earth isn't isolated, it's being powered.
Precisely. The creationist argument fails to recognize this fundamental distinction between open and closed systems.
But what if you consider the Earth as part of the larger solar system?
Even then, even if the Earth were somehow treated as part of a larger closed system, Local decreases in entropy are perfectly possible as long as the system as a whole moves towards equilibrium.
Like a refrigerator creating cold locally, but generating heat overall.
Sort of, yeah. As the physicist Erwin Schrödinger put it in What is Life? Living organisms remain aloof from the second law by continually drawing from their environment negative entropy.
Negative entropy.
Or, put simply, by consuming existing order and energy like food to maintain and increase their own internal order. They essentially feed on order to maintain their own order and even grow and reproduce.
So it's not a violation, it's a direct consequence of the Earth being an open system bathed in solar energy.
Absolutely. It's how life works within the laws of physics.
And yet, the source mentions that creationists at the Institute for Creation Research Museum simply claim that entropy increase applies to open systems too, despite clear scientific refutations.
That's problematic. It disregards the established scientific understanding of thermodynamic boundaries.
Seems like a deliberate sidestepping of established physics.
It's important to remember that thermodynamics was a mid-19th century scientific achievement, and even Darwin had to confront initial concerns about how his theory would fit with these new physical laws. But the scientific understanding has evolved, and the perceived conflict has been resolved through a deeper understanding of how these laws apply to open living systems.
So for science, this isn't a mystery anymore.
No, it's a settled point.
Okay. This brings us to perhaps the most iconic creationist argument of recent decades. Irreducible complexity and the design argument. This goes way back to William Paley's classic watchmaker analogy.
Ah, Paley's watch. Yes, from his Natural Theology in 1802.
The argument being, find a watch, infer a watchmaker. Find a complex world.
Infer a divine world maker. Exactly. Paley argued that if you find a complex watch with all its intricate parts working together, you instantly infer a watchmaker. By extension, observing the complex workings of the natural world implies a divine creator.
He even imagined self-reproducing watches, right?
He did, concluding that a watchmaker capable of such a feat would be infinitely more skilled, and thus God's greatness is revealed in living organisms, which are far more complex than any watch.
And this idea got a modern update in the late 20th century from biochemist Michael Behe.
Right, with irreducible complexity.
He defines it as a system that cannot function if any one of its parts is removed.
Implying it could not have evolved gradually through numerous successive slight modifications, as Darwin suggested.
And his prime example is a mousetrap.
The humble mousetrap, yes. He argues it needs all 5 parts: the base, spring, hammer, holding bar, and catch to work. Remove any one, and it's useless. It won't catch mice.
So couldn't have evolved step by step.
That's his claim. And intelligent design creationists, IDCs, like Behe, often link this to Fred Hoyle's famous analogy.
Boeing 747 in a junkyard.
Exactly. The idea that the probability of a functional protein arising by pure chance from random amino acids is astronomically low, like a tornado blowing through a junkyard and assembling a 747.
And they see DNA as containing specified complex information that could only come from an intelligent designer.
Right, because randomness, in their view, simply can't produce such specificity and complexity.
What's fascinating here is how these arguments often hinge on a fundamental misunderstanding of how chance and selection work together in evolution. It's not just random.
It's channeled randomness. That's a great way to put it.
Can you elaborate on that? How does natural selection transform what seems like pure chance into a directed, even creative process?
Absolutely. Let's tackle Hoyle and Dembski's probability argument first. While getting a specific sequence, like a royal flush or a specific protein, is indeed incredibly improbable.
Any specific sequence is equally improbable, right?
Right.
Like any random deal of cards.
Exactly. Any specific sequence of the same length is equally improbable. The crucial point is the functional aspect, which is often predefined by the designer in their analogies, rather than emerging naturally from the process itself.
So they set the target first.
Precisely. Randomness can and does generate complex information, think shuffling a deck. It creates a new, complex order, and natural selection then preserves and channels the variations that happen to be beneficial or functional in a given environment.
Like your phone dialing example. Random mistakes are more likely to hit numbers in the same area code.
Right, it channels the randomness towards related possibilities that might still work. Evolution doesn't pick one perfect sequence out of an infinite hat. It iteratively builds on slight improvements over time.
So it's not about hitting one exact target, but navigating a landscape of possibilities where many paths can lead to a functional outcome.
And natural selection guides the navigation by favoring beneficial mutations.
Okay, so what about Bayes' irreducible complexity?
Well, Darwin himself directly foresaw this challenge. He stated that his theory would absolutely break down if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications.
So he set the bar himself.
He did. Critics argue that Bayes misapplies the definition of irreducible complexity. Systems can and do evolve where parts are initially non-essential or serve a different function, but later become indispensable due to other changes.
Like the bridge analogy you mentioned, where a secondary support becomes essential later on.
Exactly. As illustrated by Keenan Orr, imagine building a bridge. Part A does the job. You add Part B to improve it, maybe make it stronger. Later, Part A might weaken, or the load increases, and suddenly Part B, which was optional, becomes absolutely critical.
Ah, so evolution can co-opt parts or make once optional parts essential.
That's a key mechanism. Evolution often works that way. Parts that were once optional or used for something else entirely, a concept called exaptation, can become indispensable through a series of cumulative changes.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not that a system starts irreducibly complex from nothing.
It becomes so through a series of step-by-step modifications, where intermediate stages were themselves functional, perhaps for a different purpose or just less efficiently.
Right.
And this concept of cumulative selection on random variations, even toward a distant functional target, is powerfully demonstrated by Richard Dawkins' Weasel program.
The computer simulation, yeah.
It shows how improbable outcomes, like generating a specific phrase from Shakespeare, can arise gradually through repeated selection of even slightly closer random approximations.
It's not about purpose-driven design teleology. It's about chance channeled by selection.
Precisely. And it's not just theoretical computer models either. Evolutionary computation provides real-world engineering examples.
Like Boeing using it for engine design.
Exactly. Boeing used evolutionary programming to design the turbine geometry of the 777 engine, allowing the system to evolve a more efficient design than traditional human engineering methods could easily achieve.
And they're even using it for wing designs now.
Experimenting with radical new wing designs, like the C-wings, that could make planes far more efficient. The programmer doesn't design the wing in the traditional sense. The computer evolves it through variation and selection based on performance criteria.
The system itself learns and adapts without direct human design intervention.
Yes, this is what we mean by the creative power of evolutionary systems. Thomas Ray's Tierra artificial life environment further illustrates this.
Where digital organisms evolved parasitism.
Yes, and other complex behaviors without being explicitly programmed. It's a compelling illustration of how the Darwinian mechanism, random variation, replication, and selection, is completely general.
It applies beyond biology.
It can be instantiated in various systems. It's not about magic. It's about chance channeled by natural selection, leading to incredibly complex and functional outcomes without a conscious designer. Biochemical engineers are even starting to apply Darwinian methods to design molecules for industrial uses.
That's a powerful point. The Darwinian mechanism isn't limited to biology. It's a fundamental process. Okay, let's move to how this all relates to humanity's place in the natural world. Darwin's Descent of Man really broke ground on this.
I really did, laying out the robust scientific case for human evolution. He highlighted a wide range of shared traits with apes and other primates.
Physical traits.
Yeah, general body shape, detailed structure of bones, nerves, blood vessels, internal organs, even similar fissures and foldings of the brain.
And vestigial organs, too, like the tailbone.
Exactly. He pointed out vestigial organs, remnants of ancestral structures like the coccyx or wisdom teeth, which make perfect sense in an evolutionary context but are hard to explain otherwise.
Embryology, too.
Embryological development also shows striking similarities, further reinforcing common ancestry. Human embryos pass through stages resembling the embryonic forms of other vertebrates, complete with things like gill slits and tails early on.
And then there are the hominid fossil finds, like Neanderthals, which have completely reshaped our understanding of our own past.
These fossils are absolutely critical because they exhibit both human and ape-like features, demonstrating a continuum of traits over time.
They show the intermediate steps.
They serve as clear intermediates in the evolutionary family tree, showing the gradual changes over millions of years that led to modern humans.
Even if some are side branches, like maybe Neanderthals.
Exactly. Even if some turn out to be side branches rather than direct ancestors, they still confirm the broader pattern of evolutionary connection and common descent.
And the genetics, how close are we?
Incredibly close. Modern humans differ from common chimpanzees and pygmy chimpanzees bonobos by only about 1.6% in their functional DNA.
Wow, 1.6%, that's tiny.
It is. It's a powerful genetic corroboration of our close evolutionary relationship. This tiny genetic difference translates into complex behavioral and anatomical distinctions, of course, but it fundamentally underscores our shared biological heritage.
It's incredible how close we are genetically to other primates. This raises an important question. How much of our understanding of ourselves is shaped by our perception of our place in the natural world?
A very deep question.
What does it mean to be human in an evolutionary context? Often, when people say someone is acting like an animal, they mean something negative, right? Brutish or violent.
That's a common misconception, and it's really quite unfair to animals. The source challenges this all-or-nothing mindset that insists on a complete separation between humans and other animals, or that associates animal with only negative traits.
Animals aren't just aggression.
Not at all. While non-human animals certainly exhibit aggressive behaviors, they also display an incredibly wide range of behaviors comparable to human emotions and positive social interactions.
Like Jane Goodall's groundbreaking observations of chimpanzees in the wild.
Exactly. She saw them greeting each other with hugs and kisses after separation, offering reassurance with extended hands, sharing food, soothing distress in others, and caring for their young.
Didn't she describe a young chimp helping its mother?
Yes, she recounted an instance of a young female chimp named Little Bee, who, despite being young herself, instinctively brought fruit to her weak, ailing mother who couldn't feed herself, a clear act of compassion.
Wow. These are behaviors that resonate deeply with our own understanding of compassion, empathy, and altruism.
They really do. Darwin himself explored this in his 1872 book, Expression of Emotion in Man and Animals.
What did he find?
He noted that many human emotions and faculties, such as love, memory, attention, curiosity, imitation, and even reason, can be found in incipient or even well-developed conditions in lower animals, as he put it then.
So the point isn't to diminish humanity.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's not to diminish humanity by likening us to animals, but rather to recognize the profound shared evolutionary heritage that links us. These are human qualities when expressed in chimps, and chimp qualities when expressed in humans. They're simply common traits.
Common traits that underscore our deep connections.
Profound connections within the natural world. It broadens our understanding of what it means to be living, sentient beings on this planet.
It's a beautiful way to think about it, and it really expands our definition of empathy beyond just human-to-human interactions. Now, a surprisingly analogous process to biological evolution can be seen in something we all use every day.
Language.
Absolutely. Languages evolve over time, demonstrating common descent and modification, just like biological species.
How so?
Pennock gives a great example, looking at old Bibles. If you compare a current King James version with the original from 1611, you'll see slight differences in vocabulary and phrasing.
Okay, yeah.
Go back further to the Wycliffite Bible from the 14th century, and it's still recognizable English, but harder. But if you jump to late West Saxon or Anglo-Saxon Koine versions from centuries earlier,
It's basically a foreign language.
many contemporary English speakers wouldn't even recognize it as English. It's a clear demonstration of gradual change leading to significant divergence, even mutual unintelligibility.
And within languages, you have localized speciation events, right? Like regional dialects.
Exactly. Think of y'all in the American South, or yuns in Pittsburgh for you all. Huh? Yuns. I haven't heard that one in a while.
They're prime examples of linguistic variation and local speciation occurring over relatively short periods.
And vocabulary evolves too, through a kind of natural selection.
A process remarkably analogous to natural selection, yeah? For instance, the term blinky for sour milk is dying out because refrigeration makes milk less likely to go blinky, while the word sour survives due to its broader applicability.
So the environment changed, no more blinky milk, and the word declined.
Exactly. Similarly, many characteristic Texan farm terms are disappearing due to urbanization, as the environment that supported those terms fades. Just like a biological species adapted to a specific habitat might decline if that habitat changes.
So cultural and technological shifts act like environmental pressures driving linguistic selection.
Favoring some words and phrases while others fall out of use, it's a living, dynamic system.
And linguists actually study this.
Oh yes. Research by linguists like Bagby Atwood on Texas vocabulary and Joseph Greenberg and Merritt Rulin on language superfamilies actually shows strong correlations between linguistic evolutionary trees and genetic evolutionary trees.
So language trees match genetic trees.
Remarkably well in many cases. Luigi Cavalli-Sforza, a renowned geneticist, explained that as modern humanity expanded out of Africa, breakaway groups settled new locations, and from these, other groups broke away,
leading to patterns in both genes and language.
Matching patterns in both genetic and linguistic divergence, it creates a compelling congruence between the history of human populations and the history of human languages.
That analogy provides a concrete, relatable way to understand the concept of gradual change over long periods in biological evolution.
It really does, because it's something we can literally hear and see in our everyday communication.
Okay, this brings us to a much broader philosophical concept that underpins much of this debate: the nature of truth itself.
Right, the really big question.
The clash between creationists and evolutionary theory has often been compared to the Galileo affair in the 17th century.
A pivotal moment, yeah.
Why is that comparison so common?
There's good reason for that parallel, and Pennock highlights it powerfully. Both debates involved emotion-laden questions central to our understanding of our place in the cosmos.
And they were major turning points in the relationship between science and religion.
Absolutely. Crucially, both dealt with the truth of nature and the nature of truth.
How so?
On the surface, the debates were about empirical claims, the motion of the planets for Galileo, the origin of species for Darwin. But at a deeper level, they were about how we come to know truth.
Through observation and reason, or through revelation and authority?
That's the fundamental fault line. Can we check the truth of empirical matters through sensory experience and reason, observation and experiment? Or is truth ultimately revealed by other means, like authoritative texts or personal revelation?
And that leads to a core misunderstanding of science that's often exploited. Many people, and certainly creationists, desire absolutely certain truth.
Right? Yes, often conflating scientific knowledge with religious dogma.
So they dismiss evolution as just a theory, implying it's a mere guess.
And this is a critical distinction that often gets lost in public discourse, and it's essential for being well-informed. In science, a fact is a conclusion so well confirmed evidentially that it is hard to imagine how it could be overturned,
But it's still provisional.
yet remains, in principle, subject to revision. This high confidence, together with potential fallibility, is what's difficult for a layperson to grasp, especially if they are seeking absolute certainty, like in some religious beliefs.
Could you give an example?
Think of stating your age. You consider it a fact based on strong evidence, parents' testimony, birth certificate, appearance. You're overwhelmingly confident.
But in principle.
In principle, new evidence could overturn it, though it's highly improbable. That's how scientific facts work. They have extremely high confidence based on evidence.
So when scientists say evolution is a fact, they mean it's overwhelmingly supported by evidence to an almost unimaginable degree.
Exactly. Not that it's immutable dogma set in stone for all eternity. It's about the weight of the cumulative evidence.
And calling evolution just a theory misunderstands what a scientific theory is.
Completely misrepresents it. A theory in science is a well-substantiated, comprehensive explanation of some aspect of the natural world,
Based on a massive body of facts.
repeatedly confirmed through observation and experiment. It's far more than an untested hypothesis or a random guess.
Like the theory of gravity. Nobody calls that just a guess.
Exactly. Science progresses by solving puzzles within established paradigms, building a robust framework of understanding. When anomalies resist solution, then a theoretical revolution can occur. But that's rare.
It's not an everyday thing.
Not at all. It's a paradigm-shifting event.
This distinction between scientific certainty and absolute truth is critical. This is not about scientists being unsure. It's about the methodology of how knowledge is built and verified.
And refined, yes. Which leads directly to the problem of supernatural explanations in science.
Historically, figures like Newton included God in their explanations, right?
Yes. Early natural philosophers like Sir Isaac Newton did include supernatural elements, often believing their work revealed God's handiwork and that divine intervention explained gaps in their understanding.
But science changed.
Science, as a distinct methodology, has since adopted methodological naturalism.
Why? Is it an atheistic agenda?
No, not at all. That's a common misconception. It's because science, by its nature, does not handle any supernatural agents or powers. Its tools can only investigate the natural world and natural phenomena.
So it's not that science says supernatural agents don't exist.
But that's outside the realm of scientific investigation. They can't be put to the empirical test.
Because they aren't falsifiable.
Precisely. Supernatural explanations are non-falsifiable. There's no way to prove them wrong through observation or experiment, which is fundamental to how science operates.
Asking a scientist to consider divine intervention for crop failure is like
Asking a tax lawyer to handle a civil rights case, it's outside their domain of expertise and methodology. It's also strikingly similar to the deus ex machina in ancient Greek, plays the god lowered from the machine to fix the plot.
It's an unsatisfying explanation because it stops inquiry.
Exactly, which is antithetical to scientific progress. If you attribute everything to divine intervention, there's no need to investigate how things actually work.
And the historical consequences of taking supernatural claims seriously within public institutions, they can be dire. The source mentions witchcraft trials.
A horrifying example, yes. From 1484 to 1700 in Europe, an estimated 200,000 to 300,000 people were executed as witches, often by burning.
Based on what kind of evidence?
The legal system, influenced by biblical interpretations, accepted descriptions of witches, incorporated commands like, "one not suffer a witch to live," and even accepted things like devil's marks or confessions under torture as proof.
Devil's marks.
Areas of skin insensitive to pain, supposedly. Pennock cites one chilling anecdote from St. Gregory's dialogue about a woman who thought she was eating lettuce, but instead ate a devil in the form of a lettuce.
She ate a devil in a lettuce. And this was taken seriously.
Taken seriously as proof of demonic power and used in legal proceedings.
Wow. It really does underscore how radically different accepted forms of evidence can be depending on the framework.
And how dangerous it is to blur the lines between private, unfalsifiable belief and public, empirically verifiable knowledge in legal or educational settings.
It's a stark reminder of why science, as a public institution, must adhere to methodological naturalism.
It's not a judgment on private faith, but a crucial clarification of what scientific inquiry is and is not, and how it serves the public good by producing reliable, testable knowledge.
Which brings us to perhaps the most crucial tension in this whole debate. Public knowledge versus private faith, and the proper role of education in a pluralistic society.
A huge tension, yes.
How do we respect diverse beliefs while upholding the integrity of public institutions and objective knowledge?
Well, the primary function of public education is to ensure access to public knowledge.
Meaning evidence-based, universally accessible knowledge.
Exactly. Knowledge verifiable by anyone willing to engage with the methodology. Science falls squarely into this category. It is not the function of public education to disseminate private dogma.
Which is validated differently, by authority or revelation.
Right. Validated by authority, personal revelation, or esoteric belief that cannot be publicly tested or universally agreed upon.
And religious faith, by its very nature, is described as private.
Yeah.
Even deeply personal.
Exactly. Inherently private, defined by esoteric beliefs, accepted and embraced, sometimes in defiant opposition to reason and good sense.
And the diversity of creationist views alone shows this.
Right, absolutely. The sheer diversity of Christian creationist views, Young-Earth, gap theory, day-age theory, or non-Christian creation stories like those of the Modoc, Pima, or even the Raelians.
We'll get to them later.
It demonstrates this private, often conflicting nature. There's no single, universally agreed-upon religious creation story that could be taught without implicitly endorsing one private belief system over others.
So when creationists demand balanced treatment, or the teaching of creationism in public schools,
they're essentially asking the government to endorse specific private religious beliefs over publicly verifiable scientific knowledge.
which seems to violate the spirit of a secular public education system.
That's precisely the argument Pennock and others make. This demand, if met, would fundamentally weaken the separation of church and state.
Which is meant to protect religious freedom for everyone.
Exactly, by preventing the government from establishing or favoring any particular religion. It is, as the source states, anti-democratic to vote upon the truth of factual matters.
Factual matters are determined by evidence, not votes.
Determined by evidence and rigorous scientific methodology, not by popular opinion, legislative decree, or religious doctrine.
It also highlights a common issue we see in the classroom. Pennock shares an anecdote from a physiology professor.
The one about the ribs.
Yeah. He observed that 10% of his students, without even looking at a skeleton, knew that males had one fewer pair of ribs than females.
Based on the Genesis account of Eve being created from Adam's rib.
And the professor had to have students repeatedly count the ribs themselves on an actual skeleton to disabuse them of this preconception.
It's a powerful, tangible example of how deeply held but factually incorrect beliefs can hinder scientific understanding.
And why direct engagement with evidence is so important in education.
Science invites you to look and see for yourself.
Now, intelligent design creationists have become very adept at camouflaging their religious basis, haven't they?
Yes, using a minimal set of commitments that avoids the more easily refuted scientific claims of older creationist factions.
Philip Johnson, a key figure, he argues that naturalism itself, the methodology of science, is the established religion of the United States.
This is a strategic rhetorical move, a very clever one in a way.
How does he make that argument?
By conflating methodological naturalism, which is science's rule of inquiry, its way of investigating the natural world, with metaphysical naturalism, the philosophical belief that only natural things exist, often linked to atheism.
So he blurs the line between science's method and a philosophical belief.
Exactly. Johnson attempts to create a false dilemma. He asserts that the Constitution must either be neutral between scientific naturalism and theism, allowing both in public discussion, or that naturalism is the established constitutional philosophy, thus making it a national religion if theistic dissent is restricted to private life.
But that misrepresents both science and the First Amendment, doesn't it?
Completely. It misrepresents scientific methodology and the intent of the First Amendment, which prevents government endorsement of any religion, not just a specific one. Naturalism as a methodology isn't a religion.
It's a way of turning the tables, accusing science of being a religion to try and claim equal footing in public institutions.
Right. But science is a public pursuit of knowledge, open to all, with conclusions verifiable by evidence accessible to anyone.
Whereas religious faith is inherently private.
Often based on revelation or personal experience, not publicly verifiable. When creationists demand equal time in public science classrooms, they are asking that private religious beliefs, based on supernatural revelation, be given equal weight to conclusions supported by publicly accessible empirical data.
That's not really about intellectual honesty, then.
It seems more about shifting the very definition of truth and public knowledge in a democratic society.
And this leads us directly to the moral and societal battlegrounds. Creationists frequently link evolution to what they call evil fruits, blaming it for a host of social ills.
A very common tactic, yes. They often attribute a wide range of societal ills directly to Darwinism.
Like what specifically?
Increasing lawlessness, because in their view, if we're just animals, no one owns me, there are no rules, abortion rationalized by we're all just animals anyway, marriage breakdown, ever more open homosexual practices, communism, Nazism, racism, atheism, promiscuity, child abuse.
Wow, quite a list. They even link it to slavery.
They do, despite the fact that slavery is explicitly endorsed and regulated in various biblical passages, which presents a significant logical inconsistency in their argument.
So in their view, accepting evolution leads directly to moral relativism.
That's the core claim, that morality is subjective, and people have an equal right to disagree on fundamental ethical principles. It's a classic slippery slope argument.
But philosophers push back on this.
Strongly. This is a profound misstatement and non sequitur. The philosophical counter is extremely strong. Modernist philosophers like Hobbes, Adam Smith, and John Stuart Mill, whom Johnson critiques, did not view morality as relativistic.
They sought universal moral rules.
Absolutely. Based on reason, empathy, and the consequences of actions, emphasizing individual moral autonomy and duties. Think of Immanuel Kant, a towering figure in ethics, arguing that moral imperatives hold universally, discoverable through reason, not just divine decree.
So the idea that a non-theistic worldview automatically leads to moral chaos is a mischaracterization.
A serious mischaracterization. There are many well-developed secular ethical frameworks that provide robust foundations for morality.
What about Plato's Euthyphro dilemma? How does that fit in?
That ancient dilemma is very relevant. Is something good because God wills it, or does God will it because it is good? This classic philosophical question suggests that God's authority alone cannot justify morality. There must be an independent standard for goodness, whether we see it as divine or rational or something else.
People find meaning and value outside of religion, too.
Tremendous value and meaning in life through love, family, accomplishment, art, intellectual struggle, community, irrespective of literal creation stories or belief in a specific deity.
Existentialism, for example.
Existentialism offers a powerful philosophy where individuals define purpose and meaning in a seemingly meaningless universe, choosing valor, courage, responsibility, and authenticity in the face of uncertainty. It's a testament to humanity's innate capacity for creating meaning and moral frameworks.
Okay. Beyond the abstract arguments about morality, the natural world itself presents a profound philosophical challenge to the design argument.
The problem of imperfection and suffering, yes.
If there's a designer, why does the world seem so full of flaws? This is the classical criticism. If God designed the world, why did he do such a poor job of it?
It's a powerful, ancient challenge to the concept of a perfect, benevolent designer. If a perfectly intelligent and omnipotent designer created everything, why do we see organisms so poorly adapted to their environment in many cases?
Or just wastefulness.
Exactly. Why is there so much clumsy, wasteful, blundering, low, and horridly cruel works of nature, as Darwin himself described it in an 1856 letter? It stands in stark contrast to Paley's vision of a happy world.
The scale of death and suffering is immense.
The vast majority of individual organisms born or hatched die, often in horrific ways, without ever reproducing. Consider the sheer scale of death, disease, predation, and suffering that occurs daily in the natural world.
Darwin even wrote that the argument from suffering against an intelligent first cause seemed strong to him.
He did, in an 1879 letter. He wrestled with this deeply, and he added that the presence of much suffering agrees well with the view that all organic beings have been developed through variation and natural selection.
So suffering isn't a flaw in evolutionary theory?
It's actually a prediction of it, in a sense. In a world shaped by natural selection, organisms are adapted to survive and reproduce in their specific environment, not necessarily to be perfect in some absolute omnibenevolent sense designed by an engineer focused only on comfort or efficiency.
So the existence of imperfection and suffering, what does it imply about a potential designer?
It suggests that a designer might have multiple motives that are inscrutable to us, or perhaps we simply have no way of knowing a supposed designer's intent or capacity for perfection. It pushes the idea of divine perfection out of the realm of empirical testability.
Making it a matter of faith rather than observable design.
Precisely.
So how do we move beyond this seemingly intractable dichotomy? Are there alternative explanations for origins that exist outside of the strict, often polarized, creationism versus evolution framework?
Yes, absolutely. It's not just a two-sided fight. One significant alternative among many religious people, particularly Christians, is theistic evolution.
How does that work?
Some Christians who are theistic evolutionists hold that all phenomena in the natural world can be explained by deterministic and indeterministic natural laws, including randomness.
So they accept the science.
Yes, but they also believe it's compatible with design. This view understands God as having set the initial conditions and put things in a lawful motion, acting through natural processes rather than through constant, direct, miraculous interventions that suspend natural laws.
So God is the ultimate creator, but evolution is the mechanism by which creation unfolds.
That's a good way to put it. It's an approach that seeks to integrate scientific understanding with religious belief, avoiding direct conflict by understanding God as acting through the natural processes and laws he established.
Harmonizing faith and science, acknowledging both realms.
Each with its own methodology and domain.
And then there's an even more unusual alternative that the source material brings up, one that completely sidesteps the God question: Realianism.
Ah, yes, the ET intelligent design hypothesis.
It's described as a third view.
It's fascinating because it's a religiously based movement that rejects evolution, but also denies supernatural divine creation.
So, who did the creating then?
Intelligent aliens. They believe intelligent aliens, Elohim, landed here millennia ago and engineered all life, including humans, by modifying monkeys.
Modifying monkeys.
Seriously.
That's their claim. They propose that these Elohim produced increasingly complex life forms by modifying earlier ones, essentially creating an interconnected ancestor-descendant tree of life, but through intelligent extraterrestrial design, not natural selection.
Wow. So they accept the idea of an evolutionary tree, but replace God with aliens.
Pretty much.
And they reinterpret biblical events through this very literal alien intervention lens.
Precisely. For aliens, Noah's Ark becomes a spaceship that collected genetic samples.
Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by atomic bombs deployed by the Elohim. Moses' pillar of cloud and fire was a rocket ship guiding the Israelites.
Right.
And the Tower of Babel wasn't a ziggurat, but a spaceship designed by humans to reach the Elohim's home planet, which the Elohim then destroyed to prevent premature contact.
Good grief. What about those footprints in Texas, the ones next to dinosaur tracks?
Von Daniken, a proponent of ancient astronaut theories, suggested those famous man prints at Paluxy River weren't human footprints alongside dinosaurs, but actually footprints of giant extraterrestrials.
That's quite a leap of interpretation. So what's the scientific take on alienism? Is it even testable?
From a scientific perspective, this view replaces one mystery with another. It just pushes the question of origins back a step.
Where did the aliens come from?
Exactly. It introduces intelligent designers, but these designers themselves need an explanation for their own existence and complexity. And crucially, like other supernatural explanations, it is not scientifically testable.
No way to investigate alien engineers from millennia ago.
None whatsoever. Nor can we falsify their claims. It also highlights a general problem in distinguishing an intelligence signal when we only recognize patterns characteristic of our own intelligent signaling.
We might miss something truly alien.
If extraterrestrial intelligence operates in ways completely foreign to us, we might miss it entirely or misinterpret natural phenomena as design.
Fascinating. So we've navigated this modern Tower of Babel, where different interpretations of truth create seemingly insurmountable divides.
It's a complex landscape.
We've journeyed through the complex landscape of the creation-evolution debate, examining the different definitions of truth, the nature of scientific evidence, the role of religion, and the varied interpretations of our origins.
From the subtle conceptual speciation within creationism to the powerful demonstrations of evolutionary computation and the remarkable shared traits with our animal relatives.
It's clear this isn't a simple two-sided argument.
Not at all. It's far more nuanced, with multiple viewpoints and interpretations that intertwine scientific, philosophical, and theological ideas.
Understanding this complexity, recognizing the methodological boundaries of different disciplines, and engaging with the evidence directly seems key.
That's how you engage with the topic productively and move beyond entrenched positions, yeah.
So in a world where people hold such deeply divergent views on fundamental questions of origin and truth, what new forms of understanding will emerge? Not from forced compromise, perhaps, but from a persistent, intellectually honest engagement with evidence, no matter where it leads.
That's the hope, isn't it?
What does it mean for you, the listener, to truly be well-informed in such a multifaceted conversation and to navigate these different languages of truth?
I think it means cultivating the ability to evaluate claims based on their supporting evidence, recognizing the methodological boundaries and strengths of different disciplines, science, philosophy, theology, and maintaining an open mind while adhering to rigorous standards of inquiry.
Understanding science offers provisional certainty,
but remains the most powerful tool for understanding the natural world, even as it keeps revealing more questions. It requires a willingness to engage with complexity, to challenge assumptions, and to continually seek deeper understanding even when it's uncomfortable.